Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ramon Foster Show. Comes your way once a week and brought to you by the Get-Go Cafe and Market, where they serve fresh, hot food around the clock. Ramon is in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm in Pittsburgh. And Moan, it's OTAs time.
Yes.
Around the NFL, players have shown up. Ben Roethlisberger showed up. And what I want to ask you about is something I don't believe I've ever brought up with you before, and that is Ben's relationship with JuJu Smith-Schuster.
Oh.
It is different. These two individuals have virtually nothing in common other than the exchange of a football.
Other than Ben's kids liking them, probably.
Well, now that's what I want to hear about.
Yeah.
What is it that, Ben really legitimately respects JuJu, talked openly about lobbying to bring him back. He did it 10 minutes after the Cleveland loss. He started lobbying to bring him back. What is it? What's there?
Well, you're right about, that what you said earlier is Ben has what do you want to call it? An affection? Is it affinity towards?
Affinity is probably a good word.
An affinity towards JuJu because it's two separate worlds. And I think Ben can relate to what JuJu is right now as to what Ben also was in his younger days. Young, having fun, trying to find his way as a pro. I think that what attracts him to JuJu. And the thing is this too. With everything that JuJu does, and you know what I mean by that, social media wise, TikTok, Instagram, JuJu gets a lot of flack from it. But I think the way Ben looks at it is, man, he's just like me as a kid. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to go out. I wanted to be a pro. I wanted to embrace everything that was the NFL. You got to think Ben knew. I would think Ben knew. I'm not putting it in words in his mouth or his former thought. But Ben probably knew he couldn't ride motorcycles, okay?
He found that out, unfortunately.
He found it out in a rough way, man. And talking to him about that story of how close he was to death, I don't think people understand how close he was to death. And I say that because those are the type of things that you don't think about when you're young. And where JuJu is right now is still in that world of a young guy that's finding his way through the NFL world and through life and finding himself also. And I think Ben can take an appreciation to a guy like him who's young and youthful and just full of no knowledge while gaining it on the way that he may see himself in him a little bit. You can criticize him all you want to. But the thing about him is JuJu, that is he does go play. Now, true enough, he's going to have a bad game, but who does that remind you of as a young guy? That's Ben.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Ben sees that that's his relationship with JuJu, but if you sit back and watch it the same way I have a little bit, I think Ben sees some of him in JuJu. Probably should have been drafted higher type of situation. Had to be behind the starter, take flack behind that, have some success early. And then when not soon after Ben have get the Super Bowl win, he almost dies.
He gets knocked down quite a bit. Yep.
You get knocked down. So I think he sees, and I think he wants JuJu to be successful in a lot of different ways. And the pureness of where he is right now as a young pro, as a young man, I think you can relate to those mistakes of getting caught while being out in Penn State during a game or something like that. You think about the issues he's had and you kind of say, well, that's kind of been like. In no disrespectful way, it's just we all got to learn our way in this league. And I think however it goes, Ben wants to make sure if it's in his will, if it's in his strength on the field, he's going to do that. You know that in those years where Ben's got to get his wide receiver paid, he's going to go do that. He's going to find a way to get the ball. And other people might not like it or they might criticize him for it, but that's the way it's going to go with Ben and JuJu, I think, this year. I think if we look at the talent-wise, everybody nationally might say Deontay is number one. But in Ben's book, he's going to do what he can for a guy that's coming up on a contract year. That's one of the best things I've always liked about Seven. When you look at his track record of who's next, he's always delivered for those dudes.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the other receivers because when we've asked Ben what he likes about JuJu, in addition to, he'll go through all the usual, and and rightly so, platitudes about what kind of receiver is, what kind of competitor he is. JuJu didn't get the kind of yards per catch he's had in the past. You and I have talked about that with the knee issue and stuff like that. But at the same time, no one's ever questioned his drive. Ask Vontaze Burfict about his drive. Now, what I want to when I would bring this up with Ben, he would come back with something about how JuJu handles the wide receivers. And man, does he value that. And his thing is, if he can keep a happy wide receiver room, that it means the world to him, but especially when he has a group that is as deep as you mentioned Deontay, but there's also Chase Claypool, James Washington. And you have these guys, and you don't want them bickering. You don't want them battling among each other. And it's JuJu, apparently, according to Ben himself, who keeps the peace there, who keeps them from squabbling.
I've seen that, and he's been that way for a long time. That's when the whole situation come up between him and AB as far as who's getting what. JuJu was pretty much blind to it. He didn't know, he didn't care, because he's all about everybody eating, everybody winning. And true enough, we all become pros in a sense and realize this business side behind the game. But as far as like who got what, it didn't matter to JuJu, and it still doesn't. You remember the Jets game when Deontay went over the top for the touchdown?
Beautiful play.
He's right there. He's carrying him off the field on his shoulder when James Washington gets off in the game. He does the same thing for him, and we saw the dynamic of. And I don't think some Steelers fans appreciated how he's embraced Chase Claypool simply because he's showed Chase Claypool. I'm mixing up my word. He's shown him how to be a business on and off the field too. When you see him doing the TikToks, he's like, "Oh, JuJu's doing well." JuJu's got to show him the way, because whether we want to admit it or not, that is the wave of the NFL. You become a business inside the business of the game. And you see that JuJu's pouring into him however he can about being a pro, about being a bigger wide receiver, because let's be honest, JuJu and Chase are both big wide receivers, and you got to know how to manage that type of stuff. So he's always been a selfless type dude. I sent him a message on Instagram about, man, he has some Yeezys, some Adidas Yeezys on. I was like, those are nice. And he instantly sends me back a text message. What size do you wear? You know, and you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's him. And by the way, I'm size 14.
I was about to ask.
It works out. He knew that though. But that's him, man. If you look at his Polynesian background and his family, his heritage, as much as you knock him, he's going to be okay with it, because around him, he's going to have some really good people. And I think that's what he values more than anything, is good people around him, because that gives him a sense of mental stability. It's just like with a bunch of guys I talk to about retirement. Like, your peace of mind in your retirement goes into your direct from your wife, your kids, how you deal with them. And then it's how you also communicate with the people around you in those circles, man. Like me communicating with you, being able to chop it up for 30 or 40 minutes after we get off air. Like, that's where we are as far as you being successful or having a peace of mind. You have a peace of mind, you can operate better. Like, JuJu know Ben is going to take care of him. And next up is going to be Deontay and Chase and James Washington. Like, that's the way it's going to crumble. But in that world of why JuJu is the way he is, it's because he understands the importance of good things that is going to come to him eventually. I like that about JuJu.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Steelers secondary and whether or not it's really in trouble. Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. And Ramon, the Steelers secondary is the subject of a lot of focus, I think, after the season. It's not just about losing Bud Dupree to the very happy recipients down your way in Nashville. It's also about losing Steven Nelson at right outside corner, and there's kind of a domino effect that happens from there, because on one hand, the Steelers do re-sign Cam Sutton, but they tell Cam Sutton, well, you've got to be the right outside corner. But at the same time, whenever we go to subs, which is only all the time, you're going to slide to the inside, which is weird to me, but I'm not the coach. So how precarious is this situation, or am I excessively worried about it?
I'll tell you this. Being in a room with Coach Tomlin for 11 years, he's going to break this down to Cam and for everybody else like this. Just do the job. And that's what he's going to say. Like, I'm going to give you the answers to why, but I still need you to do the job. If Cam is outside playing corner and moving in, it's two things behind it. Cam's smart enough to play outside and inside. The other part of it, and I'm surprised you didn't even bring him up, is you lose Mike Hilton. You lost Mike Hilton.
That's why Cam's bouncing to the inside.
And not only that, but Cam has an appreciation for being physical when needed inside the box too. We saw him do this last year when Mike missed 3-4 games last year.
Yeah.
Cam was able to adjust and go make those same plays, which is why you find yourself in a situation where Cam gets signed back. The decision was made one over the other, and they chose Cam. And Mike will do well too, but Cam is smart. We've always heard that. He's been a guy that Coach Tomlin has called since his rookie year, and I still don't understand how Cam did this. But in his rookie year, you have Coach Tomlin walking up to him, asking, do you see this? You see this? Like, he's breaking down stuff with Coach T during the game, almost in the sense of like a player coach. And I'm like, Coach, you got Cam in the fourth, or was it the fourth or fifth round? And you're kind of consulting him about what he's seeing. But that's because he's smart enough to know, and you put that behind him. You put that in his toolbox and have the ability to get better over time, which is what he's done. The challenge of playing outside is something he's going to have to get used to. But when you have a cerebral guy, I'm not saying he's a slow guy by any means, but when you're smart, you don't have to be the fastest, strongest, or the most talented. You just got to have the most understanding and smarts to break down stuff. That's the beauty of what Cam is, and he's been doing that since his freaking rookie year. So I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I'm more concerned about the guy that's going to move outside when Cam moves in. Like, that's where we are with that.
Yeah, with between Jason Pierre and Justin Lane, we didn't see guys really grab the position, and you wanted to see that, Ramon. Like, even though they were late season games and stuff like that, they mattered. And besides that, you got an opportunity. As all you hear all the time from athletes like yourself is just give me a chance, give me a chance, give me a chance. Here you are. Here you are. You're on an NFL field. It's Sunday afternoon. Let's go. Let's see it.
And that's what's so frustrating about building and composing a team, to where guys know they matter and they appreciate it also. Like you said, guys beg for that opportunity. They absolutely love that opportunity, but then you have an off-the-field issue with Justin Lane this past offseason that they won't say it affects what's going on moving forward, but it's in the back of their mind because they don't know if a suspension is coming. And if it is, then you lose 2, 3, 4 games behind something like that. I think it got knocked down maybe to a misdemeanor or something.
It did. That's correct.
But you still got to go through the league policy to say, hey, you were caught by the cops with this, this, and this. Like, we got to reprimand you some type of way. So when you have guys like Justin Lane, who's taken in the third round, that you expect to be a player for you, and for whatever reason, they don't become a pro, that sucks for the organization, that sucks for the fans, and it also sucks for those guys too, because this is what you've been fighting for. Do everything you can to get in this position. A guy like Cam Sutton has done this. I'm watching it in real time. A team here in Nashville that I covered, the Tennessee Titans. They had a first-round draft pick last year. And you want me to just show you the ripple effect of when guys don't want it for themselves when given the opportunity? They are in a position where they lost a wide receiver, Corey Davis, to the Jets in free agency. They also have an aging offensive line, okay? So they needed to decide on what they were going to do with their second-round pick this year. They needed somebody. They got a corner in the first round. They needed a wide receiver, truthfully, but you got to go to the position of need and probably where the most value is at, and they went offensive line. And now you have a team here that's in a conversation every single day on our show on J-Mo and Ramon. We're talking about Julio Jones being to the Titans.
I know. It's crazy.
But what I'm saying is, when guys don't do what they're supposed to do, when injuries happen or arrests happen or whatever,
messes up everything.
It's a snowball effect. I mean, think about looking at BJ and Matt and Zach and Chooks, as far as the guys on the offensive line. Like, Zach gets hurt last year. Zach would have been in a position possibly to be the left tackle. Now he's at right, probably because his knee, and you got to get that up to going up to speed soon. And there's just so much that goes into it. But on the flip side, you have a guy like Bud who has a torn ACL. And then you have a young guy, Alex Highsmith, who gets reps. And now I'm seeing articles about the 25 most underappreciated guys on the team, and you have him on that list. So it can work either way. You just need more good than bad out of it sometimes.
I guess my concern for Cam specifically, and I think I could probably ask you to hypothetically speak to this, is just the idea, and I get it. He's a headsy player and everything else. But bouncing inside and outside in the same set of downs. Yeah. I mean, Ramon, you're a pretty headsy guy, okay? And if somebody was telling you on the same set of downs, now we want you out at left tackle on this play, and we want you at guard on this play. Oh, by the way, on the next one, go ahead and snap the ball to Ben. I understand, different world.
Yeah.
Probably not the best example, but you get what I'm saying here. And I this discussion's been had with Cam, and he laughs it off to his credit, and I get that, okay? And I brought it up on a podcast recently, and I saw Cam made a little comment underneath it and said, "Love the talk." All right, well, Cam, we love your ability and your headsiness as well, but at the same time, that's not going to stop me from having concerns about it. That's a pretty big switch.
I feel you, but I don't think as much, because you got to think, one is going to be a complex position to be in, and that's probably outside. When he's inside, it's more specific. And I say that in a sense where it might not be a whole lot of thinking in a position of moving him inside. Either he's blitzing or run support, or he's got the guy in the slot.
But like it's basic. But it's basic.
It has to be basic.
Okay.
You think about what Mike and Cam were doing last year and guys that play that slot position. If we're being real, the guys on the outside, they get high dollars because they got to cover usually the fastest guy or it's a lot more space.
It's an island. In the Keith Butler system, you had better be able to handle your guy without help. Yeah.
And so I think Cam will use this situation to add more value to himself when he goes back to the table. I think a Cam, a 2-year deal or something. I think he ended up getting 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah, 2-9.
This adds more value for him if he's able to play well outside. And you got to ask yourself too, this couldn't have been a bad move for the Steelers considering they let go of Steven Nelson. And maybe it's for the post June 1st signing date or whatever it was, but he's still not on the team. So again, you have more you have more support in their decision to keep Cam and what he's able to do. Like I said, I don't worry about him. I worry about the guy that got to come in and making sure that he's on top of his job when that time comes.
Yeah, that's very fair, and it does put the heat back where it belongs, both on Justin Lane and on Jason Pierre, and we'll see how that.
Jay Lane got to step up this year.
Yeah, I hear you, and that's actually the same way that you just expressed that is the same way that we hear it from the Steelers at this point. This has to be the year where he makes up for a lot.
This year 3?
Yeah,
you got to be there's steps to it. You can't, what Coach T always says, your rookie year, surprises. The next year, there are no surprises. That stuff you did the first year won't work anymore. Now he's need to be working on his own, like, gas station. He need to be pumping his own self up so that he can get himself through these years in the league and being a real pro.
Well, what do you know? That opportunity still happens to be there, at least for another camp and the start of another season.
You spoil draft picks. Oh my God. They don't understand, DK.
Coming from the undrafted guy who has no tolerance for this sort of behavior. A third rounder, no less, in Justin Lane.
None.
When we come back, a slice of life with Ramon. Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. This is always our slice of life with Ramon segment. Ramon's a Tennessee guy, like, to the core. You know, that reminds me. It reminds me, and I'm going to put this on the show so that people are aware of this. One of our subscribers to DK Pittsburgh Sports is such a fan of your work for us that when he sent us this big box of coffee from New Zealand, where they are big time into coffee, his name is Ben, and not that Ben from New Zealand. He sent us this big box. He sent us one packet, one thing of coffee that was orange and said, "This one is for Ramon. Get it to him." Ramon, this is the best coffee on earth. I'm not saying that just to be nice to this guy.
Yeah, Ben from New Zealand. But hold up, DK. If it's orange and has my name on it, and you said it's the best in the world, have you opened it and had it?
I have not opened it. What do you think I am?
Guilty?
No. We have it for you.
That's right. Is it beans? Because guess what?
It's beans. It's beans.
I gotta show you.
Oh, you're ready for it. Look at that. That thing's still in the wrapper, though.
I know, man. I'm supposed to be making this cold brew for myself.
Ramon has a brand new coffee machine there. Look at that.
I do.
Well,
I got
anyway, no, these are beans, and they came fresh. Amazingly, they were shipped to the point where we got them like within 7 days of the time they were processed, roasted.
What?
Yeah. So anyway, you're getting this. You're getting these in an orange bag because you're a Tennessee guy. And in Tennessee, the place that is booming in Tennessee is Nashville, which is close to Ramon's home. And it's hard to describe, Ramon. I'm there a lot, obviously, to cover Predators games, Titans games that involve Pittsburgh. And every single time the cab or the Uber or my rental car is coming into town, I go, where did that come from? Yeah. There's more buildings shooting up out of everywhere. It's really growing.
It is. It's growing so much. So I actually have a brother here. He's on the station with me too here in Nashville. And it's funny. I always talk to him about what is Nashville now as opposed to what it was. And he was doing a press pregame show. He was like, and they were downtown, like by Bridgestone. And he said, man, it's crazy to me that I'm in downtown Nashville and the buildings are blocking the sunset. I said, what? What? Like that ain't ever just happened? Because when I actually moved into the Nashville area, it was 2012, 2013. Yeah. And some of the buildings were already there. And for him to say when he was younger, walking around downtown Nashville, like it was like the Capitol, I guess, and just like the tallest building was the Maxwell House or the Sheraton. And now you have, I think we counted one. My wife counted one time. It's about 17 plus cranes.
Actual skyscrapers and cranes and hotels. And it used to be that Nashville was built up just on the hillside of Broadway, and now it's gone into the other direction.
Everywhere.
Right. And so you just see downtown continuing to expand. Downtown, when you think of Nashville, you do think of the Broadway section. Yeah, downtown. You have to. It's a national treasure. And this is what I really wanted to ask you about, because when you go through Broadway and you do it really weekdays, weeknights, it doesn't matter. It's live country music. There's no jukeboxes playing. There's no nothing. It's live. The windows are open. Some of those have modern country. Yeah. Especially when you get down to, I think it's 2nd Avenue, the one that goes.
By the way, 2nd Ave, from my understanding, for the people that, and it's crazy now, you'll see people walking around with natives on their shirt, a native Nashville on their shirt. But 2nd Ave was actually the place to be in, not Broadway. It was like Broadway was an afterthought.
No, and 2nd Avenue has for the bigger concert type venues that are in there. And those are the more modern country, the more Shania Twain kind of country. Whereas down on Broadway, you're going to get a bunch of guys doing beer for my horses, and there's even some bluegrass that happens. That's actually, by the way, is the coolest. These people that come out of something from like a century and a half ago, and they're doing like ancient bluegrass. That's where that their tip jar is like packed, right?
Yes, it is, and they're scraping it up so they don't see all the tips there.
But what people don't know about Nashville. Yeah. And this is what I wanted to get your view. When they say Music City, they don't mean country music. No. And I wish more people would understand that. Nashville is home to a significant rock community, a rap community. There's pop music that comes out of there. And when you're walking along Broadway and these people have their windows down, you're not just hearing Johnny Cash. No. You're hearing everything. They take pride in all kinds of music.
It is. And like you said, from all types of all genres that you can think of is here in Nashville. And not only that, just different types of people too. The Nashville you may have known, I knew 10 years ago, isn't the same Nashville for a lot of different reasons, man. And I've heard of the amount of artists that was here. You mentioned Justin Timberlake, of course, is here. He's a Tennessee guy from Memphis area, so he's here. You mentioned all the country stars, but it'll shock you when you hear R&B like Jill Scott. She's here in Nashville. There is this video circulating around with DMX that passed away. DMX was near TSU campus recording music here. Kanye West sneaks in town to record here in Nashville, Tennessee.
I didn't know that.
So many art. There's African American history museum, like right around it's 5th and Broadway. When you come back here, go to 5th and Broadway. Amazing area.
Well, that's also where the Johnny Cash Museum is, also on that same street.
Exactly. It's right across from Bridgestone. Yep. And what's wild though, DK, Kanye is so embedded here for the museum that I was telling you about. He's from my understanding, because I know somebody on the event planning for the city, he contacted the museum and wanted to outfit them in all his Yeezy shoes and send some of his memorabilia here. Like there are Prince I've heard is here. And not only that, it's so many movie stars who are here in the city. It's become a melting pot. It was a few years back, Tom Cruise was on one of the rooftops watching the Nashville fireworks show. That's what you're seeing. Of course, Kelly Clarkson. She has a house here in where I live at. It's a lot of just everybody that you can think of.
Yeah, stars will gravitate toward other stars.
Yeah.
And that's true of any genre. If you're in LA, you'll see a mix of all different kinds of stars that don't have anything to do with each other just because, I'm a star, he's a star, she's a star, I'm going to be around that person. And Nashville has a lot of that vibe to it because as you go to these different performing areas, in particular, those bigger ones down on 2nd Avenue, where the more significant artists are. But the one misconception about Nashville that the greater misconception by far is people think the Grand Ole Opry's down there. It's not. It's not. The Ryman Auditorium which was the original. Yeah. Now, when you watch, Ramon, I've seen this because that's actually directly across the street from where the Predators play. The Ryman is. That's where the Grand Ole Opry used to be. Right. When you see the crowd that's going into that place, this is like Civil War Nashville that's going into that place, the way they're dressed up and everything else. But the actual Grand Ole Opry, it's still in Nashville proper, but it's way on the outskirts. It's nowhere near downtown. It was moved out there along with a massive convention center and all this other stuff.
Yes, exactly. But Nashville is a beautiful place, man. And I'll be honest, we were torn. My family was in staying in Nashville or staying in Pittsburgh. And it basically broke down to family being here. We absolutely love Pittsburgh. And from my understanding, Pittsburgh and Wexford and the South Hills are all beginning to go up in a lot of different ways, the same way Nashville is. The beauty of Pittsburgh, I've always been a fan of, but the way Nashville has grown as of recently, I'm not sure if my Pittsburgh family will actually enjoy that.
No, we're not into that stuff.
But it has been... If you hadn't been, the routine is fly in on a Thursday. There's a Southwest flight mid-afternoon that'll get you here before the nighttime hits. Come.
Yep. And by the way, you can do a round trip. You get out on Sunday and come back to Pittsburgh, but you also got yourself a Thursday, a Friday, and a Saturday night. Yeah, we've done this.
Yeah, we've
done this a couple times. I've actually run into you at the airport.
That's what I'm saying. That was a late night, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. She was picking me up outside. Like, hey man, that is a really large man. He could potentially be an offensive lineman. And wow, it's Ramon.
Yes, I remember that. Man, I think my flight got changed that night or something too. It was something wild, but it's not just country music. It's not just wagons and cowboy boots. Although, by the way, a new trend apparently is wearing white boots down Broadway right now. Put in the comments, let us know why white boots are a thing now.
Yeah, what's that all about? Yeah, what's that. Although they do have boot shops. Oh my goodness, especially on the lower part. When you walk into those places, the smell of the leather can actually knock you over. The boots and the hats.
You know what it smells like? BJ Finney.
BJ Finney. And we tie it all together with football. Join us next week for another episode of the Ramon Foster Show, starring, not coincidentally, Ramon Foster.